What's up, everybody, and welcome to another edition of AGR's Pop Culture Reviews. Today we're going to be taking a look at HBO Film's new project, Confirmation. Now, I realize many of you watching this review probably weren't even born in 1991. I myself was still in middle school. So for the purposes of this review, I think it's important to give a little backstory as to how all of this took place. The film actually begins in the year 1987. During this time, the Democrats in the Senate were leading a massive campaign against Judge Robert Bork. Judge Bork, of course, being Reagan's presidential nominee for the Supreme Court. The Associate Justice seat was vacated by Lewis Powell. Now, at the time, Thurgood Marshall was the first and only African American on the Supreme Court. In the aftermath of Marshall's announcement to retire, then President George Bush nominated Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas was a conservative African American, and both Bush and the GOP were determined to get him approved for the Supreme Court. However, prior to the confirmation, Anita Hill, an African American conservative attorney and academic, accused Clarence Thomas of sexual harassment. During their time working together at the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, Anita Hill alleged that Clarence Thomas talked, among other things, about the size of his penis, oral sex, and even watching porno movies. Clarence Thomas, of course, vehemently denied the accusations and even went so far as to say that the Senate hearings were, quote-unquote, a high-tech lynching, something that he coined. There was something else that I picked up on this docudrama. It really ushers in the term sexual harassment, a phrase that really hadn't been part of the American lexicon until 1991. The film really delves into the spectacle that was the Senate hearings, but also goes into what happened behind the scenes that we didn't see in front of the cameras. This, of course, being whatever political maneuvers both sides can make to satisfy their own agendas. And of course, caught in the middle of this political tornado on both sides is Anita Hill and Clarence Thomas. Now, I can go on and on about the complexity of the hearings and the key players, but I don't want to ruin anything, so let's talk about the performances. Anita Hill is played by Kerry Washington, and she gives probably one of the best performances of her career. Washington's performance really encapsulates the kind of woman that Anita Hill is. You have to remember, Anita Hill reluctantly agreed to tell her side of the story. It was only after she was subpoenaed by the Judiciary Committee that all of this came to light. Almost prophetically, Anita Hill knew what the outcome would be if she came forward. And Kerry Washington was able to convey this message masterfully. Judge Clarence Thomas is played by the multi-talented Wendell Pierce. I've followed Wendell Pierce's career for some time now, ever since such critically acclaimed shows as Third Watch, The Wire, and Tremmy. Pierce is one of those rare actors that bring a certain level of authenticity to whatever character he's playing, and this one was no different. The other key figure in the film is Joe Biden, played by Greg Kinnear. Personally, I think that Greg Kinnear went above and beyond to get the subtle nuances of Joe Biden just right, because his portrayal was absolutely uncanny. Finally, and although he didn't get too much screen time, I've got to give a special shout out to Jeffrey Wright in this film. His dialogue was fantastic, and the exchanges between him and Kerry Washington were amazing. Essentially, his character represents everything that people were thinking, but were too afraid to talk about. This segues perfectly into what I personally appreciated about this film, and it was definitely the writing. Fortunately, they were able to avoid some of the trappings of other docudramas. You don't really have any speeches or long drawn-out monologues. The writing here just has individuals in extraordinary situations that would talk the way they would talk given the circumstances. Because of the writing, you don't feel like you're watching some rushed, made-for-TV movie. The courtroom drama is done so well, and you really get a sense of tension when both Anita Hill and Clarence Thomas are testifying. Additionally, one of the greatest strengths of the film is that it's really unbiased. I'd say it's split down the middle between the perspective of Anita Hill and Clarence Thomas. And in this regard, it successfully humanizes these two individuals. Now, for obvious reasons, and given our political climate today, this film hasn't been without its controversy. With both sides of the aisle, Republican and Democrat, not exactly flattered with their portrayal in the film. Now, despite that, you can't deny that this film is absolutely relevant even today. And of course, you can't deny the overwhelming irony that one of the landmark cases for sexual harassment in the workplace happened while two individuals were working at the Equal Opportunity Employment Commission. And there's something inherently disturbing about that component. Ultimately, the Anita Hill and Clarence Thomas hearings were an absolutely fascinating case, and one that really hasn't been resolved. There are some that say that Anita Hill was a martyr, and others that still proclaim that she was lying about the entire incident. But I guess it's up to us to decide. Regardless of whatever side you are on this issue, this is definitely something that you have to sit down and watch. I suspect that they'll be showing this film in high school and college classrooms alike. This lends itself wonderfully for open dialogue, discussion, and debate about sexual harassment in general. And for those parents who have teenagers who are about to enter the workforce, I think they should be required viewing. Alright everybody, so that's my official review on HBO Films Confirmation. As always, I thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next AGR's Pop Culture Reviews.